Noah Hart stood in front of the glass door of Sunny Table, the small fast food joint on Main Street, his hand trembling slightly as he adjusted the brim of his worn-out baseball cap. A light drizzle fell, collecting on the shoulders of his dark denim jacket. His shoes were caked with mud from the cross-state drive he made the night before. He took a deep breath, eyes lifting to the shaky sign hanging above. This wasn't just a fast food place. This was the spot he once dreamed of turning into a place where people could walk in and find a piece of hope. Not just cheap food to fill their stomachs, but when complaints started rolling in about cold food, rude staff, and an exhausted gloom hanging over the place, Noah knew he couldn't just sit in an office 500 miles away, staring at reports on a laptop anymore. He didn't want to become the kind of boss who only sent out emails and demanded KPI reports while forgetting the smile of a server, the cracked hands of a dishwasher, or the soft giggle of a young boy receiving an extra handful of fries from a kind employee. They say a boss shouldn't get his hands dirty. But Noah had learned from his father, a mechanic who passed away too soon, that if you can't look the truth in the eye, you'll never change anything. Today, Noah decided to walk into Sunny Table as a stranger to seek out the truth, to see what had rotted inside the walls of the place he once dreamed would bring warm meals to everyone. He didn't know that in just a few hours he would hear whispers that would tighten around his heart. He would see eyes avoiding his, hands trembling with fear of losing a job, and a painful truth. A rotten system can keep operating because good people choose silence. If you don't stand up, who will? Noah tightened his grip on the door handle. The sound of the rain tapping on the awning above mixed with the quickening beat of his heart. He pushed the door open, greeted by the stale smell of old fryer oil and damp air. The journey had begun. The small door chime jingled softly as Noah stepped inside. The scent of greasy fry oil blended with the burnt smell of overcooked coffee, mixed with the faint scent of leftover cleaning disinfectant from the morning. He tugged gently at the brim of his cap, his eyes scanning the scratched plastic tables, the wobbly chairs, and the crumbs scattered on uncleaned surfaces. At the counter, a young woman with quickly tied black hair and a wrinkled uniform was struggling to wipe down the surface. On her old, grease-stained name tag, the letters Mila were nearly faded away. Mila looked up as Noah approached, a smile flickering across her face before quickly disappearing when she saw him looking around. "Hi there. What can I get for you today?" she asked softly, trying to keep her tone warm. Noah looked up at the menu hanging on the wall, the edges of the taped-on promotional signs peeling, the ceiling fans spinning slowly under the yellow-stained ceiling. He nodded slightly. "I'll have the number 3 fried chicken and a coffee." As Mila turned away, Noah noticed her limping slightly, each step swallowing a silent groan. She tried to stand straight, hiding the pain behind the gentle curve of her back. He chose a table near the counter, sitting down with his eyes drifting toward the open kitchen behind the service window, the clattering of pots and pans, the sputtering of hot oil, and a short bark of a voice broke through the noise. "Move faster. You think these kids want to starve?" A man in his 40s, heavy set, holding a ticket clip in his hand, paced like a hawk, eyeing every worker. His name tag read, Supervisor, Rick. Rick shot a sharp look at Mila as she placed the fried chicken on the tray, his eyes annoyed. "Don't just stand there. Table 4's been waiting." Mila bowed her head slightly, picking up the tray, her eyes avoiding Rick's as her shoulders trembled when he stood too close. Noah took in every detail. The piece of fried chicken was burned on the edges, the skin shriveled, grease soaking through the thin paper liner. The coffee smelled burnt, its dark brown liquid sloshing in a cheap plastic cup. He took a bite, the cold taste of stale chicken spreading across his tongue. Mila returned to clear a nearby table, her eyes meeting Noah's for a brief moment. In that instant, her eyes seemed to want to say something before quickly lowering again, her hand gripping the rag so hard her knuckles turned white. Noah gently placed the chicken down, lowering his voice as Mila came closer. "This chicken, is it from yesterday?" Mila froze for a second, her eyes darting to Rick, who was standing near the counter. She swallowed hard and whispered, I don't know. I just serve it." Her voice was hoarse, lips pressed tightly together, her eyes slightly red, as if she had been holding back tears for a long time. Rick stepped over, slapping Mila on the back so hard she nearly dropped the tray. Customer complaining. Mila, don't stand around whispering and making customers uncomfortable. Noah looked at Rick, letting his eyes pause for a moment. "No, I was just asking." Rick sniffed, adjusted his belt, gave a cold chuckle, and turned away. But his eyes glared at Mila before he walked off. Mila bowed her head, quietly returning to the counter, her hands trembling as she folded the rag. In that moment, Noah saw it clearly. Fear had become the uniform that Mila and these young workers wore every day. And worse yet, they had accepted silence as a way to survive. Noah clenched his hand, staring at the piece of chicken on his tray, seeing his own reflection from years ago, when he too had been afraid and silent, just to keep a job, just to avoid the yelling of a manager. Silence is what feeds evil, Noah thought to himself, his heart pounding painfully with each beat. Noah left the table, slowly walking toward the restroom. But really, he was watching the kitchen through the partially open door. Inside, the harsh yellow light of the fluorescent bulbs shone down on tired faces. A boy around 17, with messy blonde hair, was carrying a tray of cold cuts to the fridge. His face was pale, his hands shaking as he held the tray, a few drops of sweat sliding down his temples. Rick stepped in, his voice booming across the kitchen. "Tommy, move it. Stop dragging your feet and mop the floor when you're done." Tommy bit his lip, nodding softly, setting the tray on the stainless steel counter. But as he bent down to mop the floor, he clutched his chest, breathing heavily, one hand gripping the edge of the counter to keep from falling. Noah could see the trembling in Tommy's shoulders, the fear in his eyes as Rick stepped closer. Rick glanced at him. "What's wrong with you? Wanna go home, huh?" Tommy shook his head, his voice raspy. "No, I'm fine, just a little tired." Rick snorted, snatching the mop from him, tossing it onto the floor. "If you pass out, I'm not paying your hospital bills." "Got it." Tommy lowered his head, quietly continuing to mop the floor, his eyes red. Noah clenched his hand, his stomach tightening as he saw his younger self, back when people yelled in his face. If you can't handle it, quit, even though he had to keep working because his mother was in the hospital and every paycheck was another pill she needed. In the corner of the room, a young woman with tied-back red hair was chopping carrots, her hands moving quickly, her quiet eyes watching Tommy. Her gaze held worry, but also a resigned helplessness, as if she had watched this happen too many times. Noah stepped closer, quietly asking, "Is that boy okay?" The girl jumped, looking at Noah with wary eyes, then glanced around to make sure Rick wasn't listening. "Tommy, he has asthma, but he's too scared to call out. Rick says if you take a day off, you lose your shift. His mum's in treatment. He needs the money." Her voice caught in her throat. Noah saw her hands tremble for a moment as she held the knife. He softly asked, "What's your name?" She took a breath and answered softly, "I'm Emma." Noah looked deeply into Emma's eyes, seeing the exhaustion, the quiet acceptance, but also a spark of resilience. She turned back to chopping carrots, whispering, "I just want to work in peace. I don't want trouble." But seeing Tommy like that, it hurts. Noah nodded gently, placing his hand on the steel counter, his voice dropping low. "Thank you for telling me." Emma froze for a moment, looking at Noah as if she wanted to ask something, then fell silent again, turning back to her work, hiding the tear threatening to fall. Noah stepped out of the kitchen, returning to his table where the coffee had gone cold. He took a sip, the bitter taste spreading across his tongue. He looked around, seeing customers scarfing down quick lunches, not knowing that behind that kitchen wall, young people were trading away their youth and health for minimum wage. At the counter, Rick was laughing with a delivery guy, clapping him on the shoulder like an old buddy, then turning around to scold Mila for spilling a bit of water on the floor. Mila bowed her head, whispering an apology, wiping it clean as if afraid that missing a single drop would cost her the job. Noah realized it wasn't just the food that was cold here, but the air itself, so cold that these young people no longer dared to voice their fear. Fear has become the time clock here, Noah thought, glancing at the old clock on the wall ticking away. He knew clearly that tomorrow he couldn't return here as a customer anymore. Tomorrow he would return as the person who created this place, to stop the silence, to restore warmth to the people who once believed in his dream of sunny table. The next morning, the sky was grey, raindrops collecting on Noah's windshield as he parked in front of sunny table. Today, there was no worn-out baseball cap, no cheap jacket, no quiet steps blending into the crowd. Noah stepped out of his car wearing a light blue, crisply ironed shirt, dark slacks, and polished black leather shoes. A name tag pinned straight on his chest read Noah Hart, founder and CEO. He paused in front of the door, took a deep breath, and then pushed it open. The small bell chimed, but unlike yesterday, today he wasn't here to observe. Today, he was here to change things. Inside, the air was the same, but every pair of eyes turned toward Noah. Tommy, who was wiping down a table, froze when he saw him, the rag slipping from his hand to the floor, behind the counter. Mila's eyes widened, her hands shaking slightly as she set down a cup of coffee. Rick came out from the kitchen, clipboard in hand, his face flashing a moment of confusion when he saw Noah, but quickly morphing into a forced, polite smile. "Hello, sir. What can I get for you?" Noah didn't answer. He looked directly at Rick. "I need all staff in the break room in 10 minutes. Rick froze, the smile vanishing, tension tightening across his face. And you are?" Noah looked around, his voice low but clear. "I'm Noah Hart. I own this place." A sharp breath echoed in the room. Mila lifted her hand to her mouth, eyes filled with worry. Tommy swallowed hard, stepping back. Emma, still holding a knife, looked out from the kitchen, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and hope. Rick pressed his lips together, jaw clenched, his face flushing red. "I didn't receive any notice." "You have it now?" Noah cut in, his tone calm but each word sharp. Rick opened his mouth to protest, but Noah turned to Mila. "Can you please let everyone know to meet in the break room right now?" Mila nodded slightly, her voice trembling. Yes." 10 minutes later, the small break room was packed. Tommy stood close to the window. Emma stood next to Mila, both of their faces tense. Rick stood with his arms crossed, chin lifted high, forcing a look of fake confidence. Noah stood in front of them, meeting each gaze, his voice low but warm. "I'm here today because I've heard about the problems happening in this place. Yesterday, I came in as a customer, and I saw it for myself." He looked at Rick. "I saw employees being yelled at, forced to work while sick, denied their legal right to rest. I saw food being reused, hygiene ignored, and threats thrown around. If you can't handle it, then leave." The room fell so silent that you could hear a pin drop. Rick scoffed, lowering his voice. "You don't understand this business. If we don't run it this way, costs go up. You can't keep your profit margins. I don't want profit that's built on fear and the suffering of employees." Noah interrupted, his eyes flashing with resolve. He turned to Tommy. "Yesterday, you passed out in the bathroom, didn't you?" Tommy trembled, his eyes welling with tears. I'm sorry." Noah stepped closer, resting a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just trying to survive." Noah looked back at everyone. Sunny Table was created to be a place where people feel respected, where people can eat safe meals, where people can work without being afraid every second. He turned back to Rick, his voice firm. "Rick, you're fired. Effective immediately." Rick froze, his mouth hanging open, eyes bulging. "You can't, I can. And I just did." 2 plainclothes security guards stepped in. Rick looked around for help, but no one said a word. Emma squeezed Mila's hand, both of their eyes shimmering with tears as they watched Rick being led away. Noah looked around the room, his voice softening. "I know everyone here has been afraid, but today the fear ends." He turned to Emma. "Emma, you've cared about your co-workers, and you deserve to be heard. I'd like you to take on the role of acting shift supervisor." Emma froze. I'm not sure. You've been ready for a long time. You just never had the chance." Emma burst into tears rolling down her cheeks as she nodded. Noah exhaled slowly, looking at everyone, his eyes softening. "Starting today, we're going to rebuild Sunny Table. This will be a place where people can take a break when they need to, where they are respected, paid fairly, and most importantly, where they can hold their heads high." Tommy wiped his tears, his eyes lighting up for the first time in days. Mila squeezed Emma's hand tightly, a soft smile appearing on her face. Noah stood tall, his eyes steady, his heart filled with determination. "Tomorrow, we begin again, and I'll be here with all of you." The next morning, gentle sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of Sunny Table, shining down on the plastic tables that Mila had carefully wiped down early that morning. Emma wore a new name tag reading Acting Shift Supervisor, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her tied-back red hair, her eyes reflecting both worry and hope. Noah arrived early, wearing a simple shirt with his sleeves rolled up, his eyes sweeping across the restaurant, noticing that the air already felt different than the day before. The staff trickled in, still cautious, some glancing around nervously, but at least there was no Rick barking orders and throwing clipboards. Tommy arrived a few minutes late, his steps still weak, his breathing a little heavy, but in his hand he carried an inhaler, his eyes darting away when he saw Noah. Noah walked over, placing a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "If you're not feeling well today, you can go home and rest. You'll still get paid for your shift." Tommy looked up, tears glistening in his eyes, his lips trembling. I need this job." "But thank you." Noah smiled, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Your health is more important than any job." At the counter, Mila was making coffee, her hands still shaking, but when she caught Noah's gaze, she nodded softly, regaining her breath. Emma walked by, pausing for a moment, placing a hand on Mila's. "It's okay, Mila. We're going to do well today." Those simple words, small as they were, became a lifeline for Mila, calming her chaotic mind. She smiled gently, for the first time in many months. But not everyone was pleased with the changes. In the kitchen, Carl, a long-time cook with a large build and a gruff voice, was chopping meat at a rapid pace, scowling as Emma reminded him, "Carl, please check the oil temperature before dropping in the fries, and don't reuse old oil anymore." Carl stopped, casting Emma a condescending glare. "I was working here before you even knew how to tie an apron. Don't teach me." Emma took a breath, her voice steady. "These are new policies from Noah himself. Food safety is more important than speed." Carl slammed the knife down on the cutting board, the loud clack making Tommy jump, dropping a basket of vegetables onto the floor. "These stupid rules are going to kill our serving times. What do these kids even know?" The tension in the air was sharp. Emma glanced at Noah standing near the door, her eyes silently asking for backup. Noah stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Carl, I know you've given many years to Sunny Table, and I appreciate that. But starting today, we do things the right way. or we don't do them at all. Carl narrowed his eyes. You think customers care about this stuff? They just want cheap, fast food. Noah met his eyes directly. I care, and the people working here deserve respect and a safe environment. Carl squinted, ready to argue further, but then lowered his shoulders, picked up the knife, and returned to chopping meat. Tommy bent down to pick up the basket of vegetables, and Emma stepped over to help him, whispering, "It's okay now, Tommy." The boy looked up, gratitude shining in his eyes. By lunchtime, the restaurant was filling with customers. Mila moved with more confidence, a smile returning to her face as she served customers. Emma stood near the counter, watching the kitchen, reminding staff gently but firmly. An elderly woman sitting near the window watched for a while before calling Mila over. "Sweetheart, what's different today? The air in here feels different." Mila was taken aback, then smiled. "We're just trying to serve everyone better, Mom." The old woman nodded, her eyes crinkling as she smiled. "Keep that smile, dear. It makes this place a lot brighter." Mila turned away, covering her mouth to hold back tears of happiness. Noah stood near the counter, watching it all unfold, his heart feeling soothed. He knew the road ahead was still long, that there were still people like Carl, that old wounds among staff hadn't fully healed, and that mistakes still needed fixing. But today, he saw the spark of hope, and he wasn't going to leave until Sunny Table truly became the place he once dreamed of. 3 days passed since Rick was fired, and the atmosphere at Sunny Table gradually warmed. Tommy could smile again. He offered to take extra evening shifts to save money for his mother's treatment. But this time, Noah insisted he take 1 day off a week, with a promise: "You don't have to sacrifice your health to keep this job." Emma grew more comfortable in her supervisor role, her voice warm but firm as she reminded staff to wash their hands, check food temperatures, and keep an eye on the kitchen area. Mila slowly began to glow, her eyes no longer avoiding customers, her bright smile reappearing when children walked in. But new challenges came from outside. On the 4th morning, just as Noah stepped into the restaurant, his phone buzzed. The screen read Brett, Regional Operations Director. Noah answered, Brett's voice coming through, agitated. "Noah, I got the report from accounting. You're spending double the budget on that Sunny Table branch. They say you've replaced all the fryer oil, ordered fresh produce, increased staff hours." Noah looked out the window, seeing Tommy and Emma laughing as they stacked fresh crates of vegetables, the morning sunlight shining on their faces. "Yes, I did." Brett paused for a moment before his voice rose sharply. "You're destroying the system. Noah, if you want Sunny Table to survive, you have to keep the profit margins. You can't just burn money on a single branch because of your feelings." Noah took a deep breath, his eyes reddening slightly, his voice dropping low. "I'm not burning money. Brett, I'm investing in people. If cuts need to be made, I'll cut out the meaningless things, not the safety or health of our employees." Brett scoffed. "How are you going to manage that? Other branches will start demanding the same, and then you'll lose all your profit. I'll be reporting this to the board." The call ended, and Noah stood still for a moment, his hand clenched tightly. He knew that to keep his promise to his employees, he would have to face an entire system that had grown accustomed to cutting corners and putting profit above all else. That afternoon, the restaurant was packed. A young family walked in, a father pushing a stroller, a mother holding a small girl in her arms. The little girl had big eyes, but her skin was pale, and a small bandage was wrapped around her wrist. Mila greeted them with a smile, guiding them to a table near the window. While taking their order, Mila bent down and asked the little girl softly, "Do you like fried chicken?" The girl gave a weak smile and nodded. Emma watched this scene from a distance, a small smile on her face. She turned to Tommy. "See that? Just one smile from us, and people can feel that this place is different." Tommy nodded, then stretched to wipe down the salad bar again, his eyes steady. But what happened next shifted the air in the room. Carl, the former cook, pushed the door open, not wearing his uniform, holding a stack of papers in his hand. His eyes scanned the room, landing on Noah, and he smirked. "You think you're some hero, Noah." Noah stood up calmly. "Carl, if you want to talk, we can step outside." Carl shook his head, his voice rising. "I just want everyone here to remember, nothing in life is free. This new boss of yours, he won't be able to protect you forever." Emma stepped forward, blocking Carl's path, her voice steady. "You can't cause a scene here." Carl sneered, waving the stack of papers. "These are invoices the company owes me. He promised to pay them, but they're still unpaid." Noah took a deep breath, looking at Carl. "We will handle any outstanding payments, but this isn't the way to resolve it." Carl scoffed. "I'll be back, and I'll let the board know exactly how you're running this place into the ground." Carl left, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Tommy stood gripping the rag tightly, looking at Noah with fear. Mila stepped back, her hands trembling. Noah turned to them, his eyes softening, his voice firm. "Don't be afraid. I promise to protect you, and I promise to protect Sunny Table. None of you have to go back to the old darkness." Emma took a deep breath and nodded. Mila gave a small, weak smile. Tommy loosened his grip, a flicker of trust in his young eyes. Noah knew that bigger storms from the system were on their way, but he also knew that the fight to keep a workplace humane would always be worth it. That night, when the restaurant closed, Noah stood in front of the glass door, looking at his reflection, no longer afraid. Night fell. Main Street bathed in the dim glow of scattered streetlights. Inside Sunny Table, chairs were turned upside down and stacked neatly on tables, the floor still damp from mopping, the salad bar spotless. Emma stood checking the shift logs, her eyes tired but bright. Mila stood beside her, helping to count receipts, occasionally stifling a yawn, the shadow of a smile still on her lips. Noah sat at the corner table near the window, a cup of coffee gone cold in front of him, his eyes looking out onto the street where light rain fell in fine mist. Today had been a long day, and tomorrow would be even longer. Tommy tiptoed over, still holding the cleaning rag, his voice shy. "Mr. Noah, I'm sorry for dropping the veggie tray today. Noah turned, giving him a gentle smile. "You picked it up and cleaned it, didn't you?" Tommy nodded, his eyes lowering. Noah patted his shoulder. "Then you did the right thing. No one is blaming you." Tommy bit his lip, then suddenly asked, "Weren't you scared?" "Miss Noah, facing people like Mr. Rick, Mr. Carl, and the big bosses like Mr. Brett." The question made Noah pause. He looked into Tommy's innocent eyes. Eyes that carried fears no 17-year-old should have to carry. He took a breath, his voice lowering. "Of course, Tommy, I was scared. I was scared that if I stayed silent, people would keep getting hurt, would keep having to bow their heads. And I was scared that if no one stood up, nothing would ever change." Tommy nodded softly, his eyes glistening under the yellow lights. He pressed his lips together and whispered, "I'm scared too. But when you're here, it makes me feel less scared." Noah felt a lump in his throat, placing his hand on Tommy's shoulder, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Thank you, Tommy. And I promise, I'm not going anywhere." At the counter, Mila paused, counting, turning to Emma, whispering softly, "Emma, do you think Noah will really keep his promise?" Emma paused, looking at Mila, then glancing at Noah, talking to Tommy. She remembered the days before, when every morning she would wake up telling herself, "Just get through today." But today, for the first time in many months, she didn't have to tell herself that anymore. Emma placed her hand on Mila's. "I don't know what the future holds, Mila, but I know that at least now we're not alone." Mila lowered her eyes, tears welling up, dropping onto the receipts they were counting. She wiped them quickly, laughing softly. "Sorry, I'm just a little tired." Emma hugged Mila gently, then pulled away, both of them returning to their tasks, but this time with smiles returning to their faces. Late that night, Noah left Sunny Table. He paused at the door, inhaling the cool air, the scent of rain and wet grass drifting by. The light from inside the restaurant spilled onto his face, highlighting the tired lines but leaving his eyes steady. He knew bigger battles lay ahead, the calls from the board, the emails demanding budget cuts, the unseen pressures of the industry. But he also knew that every smile today, every whispered thank you, every look of relief from an employee leaving their shift, that was what made this fight worth it. A restaurant doesn't just sell food, it's a part of the lives of the people who work there. Noah reminded himself. He walked over to his car, opened the door, sat down, turned on the radio without volume, watching the rain fall on the windshield, listening to his heartbeat matching the rain's rhythm. Noah knew that tomorrow he would be back, opening the doors alongside Emma, Tommy, Mila, and everyone else, so that one day, when customers walked into Sunny Table, they would feel it. The next morning, just as Noah stepped into Sunny Table, his phone buzzed. On the screen, Brett, Regional Operations Director. This time, a video call. Noah answered. Brett appeared, his face tense, the backdrop showing a corporate meeting room with the company logo behind him. His voice was cold. Noah, the board is in session. They're requesting your presence immediately. 15 minutes later. Noah sat in front of the screen in the sunny table break room, Emma standing beside him, her eyes filled with worry. On the screen were 5 stern faces of the board of directors, with Brett seated at the head of the table. An older man with silver hair and glasses, Mr. Grant. The chairman looked at Noah, his voice clear. Noah. The financial reports show that the Sunny Table branch on Main Street is operating at 1.8 times the standard budget. Explain yourself. Noah took a deep breath. I replaced all the old ingredients, stopped reusing old fryer oil, added staff, ensured legal break rights, and paid full wages. I'm fixing mistakes that have been ignored for too long. A brown-haired woman in a blue suit frowned. You call that fixing mistakes? We call it breaking the system. Do you realize how much the profit margin has dropped? Brett cut in. Noah, with all due respect, you can't let your personal feelings affect the entire system. Noah looked directly into the camera, his voice calm but unwavering. I'm not using feelings. I'm using conscience. The boardroom fell silent for a few seconds. Mr. Grant removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. We don't run a charity. Noah, we run a restaurant chain. Noah took another breath, his voice softening but his gaze firm. And that restaurant chain is run by people. If we don't care about them, we have nothing. Brett shook his head, his voice sharp. You're letting the staff take advantage of your kindness. I've received a complaint from a former employee saying you're playing favorites with some young workers, giving them unnecessary overtime. Noah let out a small, tired smile. If playing favorites means letting them take a sick day, then yes, I'm playing favorites. Mr. Grant drummed his fingers on the table. We can't allow this branch to keep burning cash. You have 2 choices: revert to the old procedures or resign and remove yourself from the system. Noah clenched his hand. Emma standing beside him, her eyes wide with fear, her mouth opening as if to say something but falling silent. Noah closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, his voice dropping, each word clear. I choose neither. I will buy out this Sunny Table branch. The boardroom froze. Brett burst out laughing. You're joking. Right. Do you even know how much the property and equipment there are worth? Noah's eyes brightened. I know. And I also know the worth of the people there is more valuable than any number. Mr. Grant's brow furrowed. You'll assume responsibility for all outstanding debts, operating costs, and the entire staff. Noah nodded. I will. The tension in the air stretched out for a few seconds before Mr. Grant sighed. Fine. We'll have legal draft the terms. But Noah, I hope you know what you're doing. Noah nodded. I do. The meeting ended. The screen went black, leaving only Noah and Emma in the room. Emma turned to him, her eyes red. You just risked everything for this place. Noah gave a small, tired but peaceful smile. I'm not risking it. Emma, I believe in this place. I believe in all of you. Emma broke down. tears streaming as she hugged Noah unexpectedly. "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up." Noah gently patted her shoulder, his voice deep. "From now on, we decide how Sunny Table will run. No one else can force you to bow your heads anymore." That evening, after the staff clocked out, Noah called Mila, Tommy, Emma, and a few others together. Standing in the middle of the room, his voice was steady. "Starting today, this Sunny Table is ours. There will be no more meaningless orders, no more forcing sick people to work, no more fear when walking into a shift. But to keep this place, we have to work together, serve our customers with our best, and work clean, safe, and fair." Tommy looked up, eyes bright. "I'll try my best." Mila smiled, squeezing Emma's hand, whispering, "I believe." Emma looked at Noah, her gaze firm. "Let's begin." Noah looked around, meeting each face that once held fear and silence, now shining with confidence and resolve. "Tomorrow, we start again. And this time, no one will be able to extinguish this flame." The next morning, the energy in Sunny Table was livelier than ever. Emma held a new checklist, guiding Tommy on how to check fryer oil temperature before dropping fries, how to sort vegetables to avoid waste, and how to clean the counters properly. Tommy smiled, feeling for the first time that he was not just a busboy, but an important part of this place. "Emma, do you really think I can do it?" Tommy asked softly, his eyes bright. "Yes, Tommy, I believe in you," Emma replied, her eyes warm. At the register, Mila helped an elderly customer who was paying with neatly folded small bills from a worn fabric pouch. The old woman's hands trembled as she apologized for counting slowly. Mila smiled. "It's okay, ma'am. Please take your time." As the woman took her tray, she held Mila's hand and whispered, "You're such a sweet girl. Thank you for your patience." Mila bowed slightly, tears welling up, a warm feeling rushing through her chest. "This is why I want to stay," she thought. Noah stood near the entrance, holding a small notebook, jotting down details. New oil consumption levels, peak hour customer counts, average serving times, daily leftover inventory. Running an ethical business didn't mean ignoring the numbers, and Noah knew better than anyone that without balance, Sunny Table wouldn't last long enough to fulfill its mission. He personally adjusted the salad bar layout to prevent waste, taught Emma how to forecast daily demand based on weather and previous customer flows. He and Tommy wiped down stains on the walls, replaced a flickering light bulb that had gone ignored for months because no one dared to ask for it to be changed. But challenges came quickly. That afternoon, a produce supplier arrived with a delivery. They brought wilted, bruised vegetables and whispered to Emma, "This batch is 15% cheaper. You want it, nobody will notice." Emma hesitated, remembering how Rick used to accept these, mixing them with fresh veggies to sell. She looked over at Noah, who was talking to a customer, then turned back to the pile of wilted greens. She shook her head. "Sorry, we don't accept low-quality produce." The delivery man shrugged. smirking. "You're too naive, lady. You'll see. No one stays holy in this business for long." Emma clenched her fists, her heart pounding. When they left, she took a deep breath, walked over to Noah, and whispered, "I just turned down a cheap batch of produce." Noah turned to her, smiling. "You did the right thing." Emma's eyes welled up, her voice trembling. "But I'm scared. If we keep refusing, costs will go up, and then we'll—" Noah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his voice deep but warm. "It's normal to be scared, Emma. But fear doesn't get to decide how we live." Emma lowered her head, tears falling. But they were the tears of someone who had chosen to stand on the right side, even if the road wasn't easy. At the end of the day, with the doors locked, everyone sat around the last table, sharing the leftover meals. Tommy chewed on a sandwich, looking up at Noah. "Mr. Noah, did we make a profit today?" Mila laughed, ruffling his hair. "What, are you our accountant now?" Noah chuckled, pulling out his small notebook. "We didn't lose money, and we served 18 more customers than yesterday." A soft round of clapping broke out around the table, the atmosphere warm. Emma wiped her tears, her voice choked but firm. "Tomorrow we'll serve even more." Noah looked at them, feeling his heart catch fire with hope. Sunny Table isn't just a restaurant. It's where we build a better world, one day at a time. In that moment, no one spoke. There were only smiles, trusting eyes, and a quiet unity filling the room. They knew this road wouldn't be easy, but they had chosen to walk it together. A week after Noah announced he would buy out Sunny Table, signs of progress began to show. Customer flow stabilized. Many returned for the fresh food and the friendly service. Mila smiled more. Emma managed the flow seamlessly, and Tommy confidently manned the counter without trembling. Noah observed, jotting down every small detail, sometimes helping customers clear tables, sometimes chatting with an elderly man who quietly paid with coins wrapped in newspaper. But nothing was ever easy. One rainy afternoon, when the restaurant was quiet, the door swung open. 3 men in suits walked in, cold expressions on their faces as they headed straight to the counter. The man in front slammed a stack of papers onto the counter, his voice sharp. "I'm Reed, representing Clarendon Holdings, the owners of this property. Noah Hart." Noah stepped forward, his gaze calm. "Yes, I'm Noah." Reed smirked, sliding the papers toward him. "Your lease for this property expired last month under your old company's agreement. Clarendon has decided not to renew." The air thickened. Everyone froze. Tommy, carrying a tray, started shaking, nearly dropping it. Mila's mouth fell open. Emma gripped the counter so hard her knuckles whitened. Noah flipped through the papers, his eyes scanning each clause, his heart pounding as he read the last line. "Vacate the premises within 30 days. Reed crossed his arms, voice cold. "We're giving you 30 days to move out. This area is being redeveloped into a high-end complex. Cheap food has no place here." Emma stepped forward, eyes red. "But we just started over. Reed glanced at her, scoffing. "Sweetheart, this is business. Don't mix feelings into it." Tommy's voice cracked. I don't want to lose this place." Noah placed a hand on Tommy's shoulder, looking Reed in the eye. "I want to speak to your superiors." Reed shrugged. "You have nothing to negotiate with. We own this property. It's that simple." They turned and left, leaving the restaurant heavy with silence. That night, the shop closed early. Emma sat in a corner, her head in her hands, shoulders shaking. Mila silently washed cups, tears mixing with the dishwater. Tommy sat on the floor, staring blankly at his apron. "I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to work here." Noah stood in the middle of the restaurant, the yellow light highlighting the lines on his face, the weariness in his eyes. He knew he was about to lose more than a property. He was about to lose a home for the young people who had begun to find trust in work, in life. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He could almost hear his father's voice in his mind. "You can't win every battle, son, but you can choose how you stand up." The next morning, Noah met with a lawyer. They confirmed the old lease had indeed expired, and Clarendon had the right to reclaim the property. The lawyer looked at Noah, his voice low. "If they don't want to renew, there's almost nothing you can do." Noah clenched his fists, his eyes burning with determination. "I'm not giving up." He returned to the restaurant to see Tommy wiping tables, Emma guiding Mila on restocking trays. Everyone paused when Noah walked in. Noah looked at each face, his voice firm. "I won't promise we can keep this place at all costs, but I promise we'll fight until the very end." Emma stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "What do we do?" "Noah." Noah smiled, his voice steady. "We show them that Sunny Table isn't just a restaurant, it's a family. And we will show everyone that a place built on people, not just profit, is worth fighting for. Tomorrow, the final battle would begin, and this time, Noah, Emma, Tommy, Mila, they would enter it together, leaving no one behind. The next day, the sky was grey, the wind strong, the Sunny Table flag outside flapping wildly. Emma, Tommy, and Mila stood beside Noah at the door, watching as Clarendon's trucks pulled up across the street, supervisors stepping out with clipboards, their eyes cold. Noah turned to Emma, his gaze calm. "Are you ready?" Emma nodded, breathing deeply. "We're not backing down." At 900 M. Reed stepped into the restaurant, holding a thick folder, standing in the middle of the floor like a declaration of power. "We're here to inform you that all equipment must be moved out within 3 days. Tommy stood behind the counter, gripping a rag, glaring at Reed but unable to speak. Mila's shoulders shook, but she kept smiling as she served customers. Emma stepped forward, her voice firm. "You can't do this while the restaurant is operating." Reed sneered. "You think your words mean anything here?" At that moment, the door swung open. The old man who ate in the corner every morning walked in, cane in hand. Beside him, his daughter, a nurse at the local hospital. Behind them, a young family carrying the baby Mila once cared for entered, followed by a group of college students who always came for breakfast before class. They formed a line, eyes resolute, staring directly at Reed. The nurse stepped forward. "You have no right to shut this place down." Reed frowned. "This is business. None of you have any say." The nurse shook her head. "Sunny Table helped us. Here, the elderly are cared for, workers are respected, struggling students get to eat. This isn't just a restaurant, it's a community." Tommy stepped forward, head high. "Coming right up, Princess." The third was a group of college students, backpacks slung over their shoulders, laptops in hand, settling into their usual corner. Eyes grateful as Mila set down a free water pitcher on their table. Emma watched it all, her eyes misty. "This is Sunny Table. This is what we fought to protect," she thought. As the restaurant filled, the air rang with laughter, the clink of utensils, the chatter of children, all blending with the scent of fresh coffee, warm pastries, and crispy fried chicken, the scent of life, of hope. Noah stood behind the counter, wiping his hands, observing everyone. He thought of his father, who once said, "A restaurant isn't just a place that sells food, son. It's where people find kindness, care, and the knowledge that they're not alone." Today, those words lived in every beat of his heart, in every breath within the restaurant. At 10 Hezrel A.M., Emma stepped out, clapping her hands gently. "Everyone, today is a special day. We have a free pastry for every customer here to thank you all for believing in Sunny Table." Applause broke out, smiles lighting up faces, tears glistening in grateful eyes, heads nodding, soft thank yous spoken from the heart. Tommy ran up to Noah, whispering, "Mr. Noah, today I feel happy." Noah bent down, placing a hand on his shoulder. "So do I." Tommy looked up, eyes bright. "One day, I want to be a boss like you, to build a place like this." Noah squeezed his shoulder, his voice breaking but his eyes shining. "You will, Tommy. I believe in you."